about items not on the agenda? Anything online? No. Okay, moving on to consent calendar. Any commissioner like to pull anything off consent for discussion? Anyone from the public like to make comment about any consent item? Not online. Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion.
I am a little bit delayed. I would like to pull item B.
Okay.
For a quick discussion.
You want to just have discussion or?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and do a motion for A. Let's do that.
So move.
I'll second it.
All right. Motion. I have a first and a second on consent item A. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right. Go ahead, Rich.
I just want to revisit this conversation, make sure that there were some conversations in the Management Finance Committee around the expenditures with our communications. Want to make sure that that's being addressed. We get itemized reports for that one to the Management and Finance Committee and make sure that, we're talking through what the budget is for that 1% that was taken out for one communications, but also to fill in the gaps on the remaining funds and where that expenditure is going to be going.
So I'll go ahead and take that one. So yeah, we actually met with the Management and Finance Committee last week and we discussed this item. One of the things that came from that meeting was to form an ad hoc committee made up of Riverbank, which would be their city manager, and then City of Modesto's Director of Finance, Newman, and series directors of finance to talk this through so that the reporting and everything is, everyone's on the same page.
And how does this affect, the item, and maybe this is a little bit of education for me, the approval of the funds received investment recap report, or how does that proceed with the ad hoc committee?
It has no, it will be updated once we talk to bring it to the Management and Finance Committee and talk it through, which we plan to do next month.
Next month?
Yeah, so that should remedy that one.
Thank you.
Gene, can I ask you on that? So the first year was about $600,000. We started collecting when?
We started collecting August of this last year.
25.
So it's been a year.
Yeah, about a year.
Have you withheld the last month, August? Because August isn't closed, is it?
No, we haven't done that yet, no.
But we'll say 11 months, but about 12 months, and that'll be $600,000.
Correct.
You're not going to collect, this is a statement, not a question, but it's a question too. You're not going to continue to collect money until this is fixed, right?
Correct.
Until we come to consensus?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
So it's not going to be another $613,000.
No, we need to work through this with the ad hoc committee, and then we'll address it at that point.
I thought that had been discussed and decided for a while.
We had.
Yeah.
We're not at the year.
Right. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
So you said it was August 2024 then that this began being collected?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
August.
Any other question? Any other questions from the public on consent item B? Nothing online.
Motion to approve consent item B.
I have a first.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, moving on to section 5, discussion. 5A, motion to recommend the policy board approve by resolution the memorandum of understanding MOU for the local partnership competitive program LPPWP C for 7th Street Bridge Replacement Project. Jose Luis.
Yes, hello, Jose Luis Cáceres, your Director of Programming and Program Delivery. This should be a fairly fast item. The 7th Street Bridge project requires an memorandum of understanding in order for StanCog, the recipient of local partnership program funds, to pass it through to the county, the lead agency for the 7th Street Bridge Replacement Project. I should add the county is doing it in partnership with the city of Modesto. Next slide, please. So this is the same slide I brought before. Well, I'm not sure if it's come before the executive committee, but before the policy board and supporting committees. That's 7th Street Bridge. And that is, that's the part that scares me whenever I drive over it. We, StanCog, thanks for zooming in. We, StanCog, were successful in applying to the California Transportation Commission. If we could zoom back out for those bullets on the side. We were successful at applying to the California Transportation Commission for 15 million of local partnership program funds, the local partnership competitive program. Now, one thing I should add, if we did not have Measure L, we would not be able to apply for that pot of funding. The local partnership program was created by the CTC as an incentive program for regions, counties, cities to go pass local measure sales taxes dedicated transportation. So StanCog, we got to apply for it, and we recommended that our top project be the 7th Street Bridge. 7th Street Bridge got the funding. They plan to allocate in December, and I forgot to update this side. They're actually going to award in December as well. This bridge is flying. With a beginning of construction still in February. In order for this project to proceed at the state level, there needs to be a memorandum of understanding documenting how the funds are going to be handled. Next slide. So these are the basics of that MOU that the city or the county and StanCog would enter into. It would say StanCog administers Measure L. StanCog applies for local partnership program funding, the competitive program. The county constructs the project, and the two agencies agree that these local partnership competitive program funds will flow directly to the county, and the county assumes all the responsibilities for using the LPP and reporting on it accordingly. Next slide. And with that, I'll take questions.
Any questions from the board?
Can you explain about the it was fully funded before we got this $15 million in?
Yes. So this is a great question to set the table for a future presentation item that I'll be bringing up. So something about 7th Street Bridge is it uses Highway Bridge Program funding to pay for it. All bridges on local roads in California that need replacement qualify for the Federal Highway Bridge Program, and it pays about 80% of the cost of replacing any bridges that are in need of replacement. 7th Street Bridge has been fully funded with that 80% of federal funds and the 20% of local funds split evenly between the city and the county. It's been fully funded for about 7 years. Being fully funded is not a reason to stop pursuing federal and state dollars. In fact, it actually puts you in the advantage of going after funds. When you apply to funding, if you don't get it, hey, it's all right. We've got a plan for how to deliver the project. When you apply for funding, you get to say, our project is shovel ready. We are ready to go. We have all the funding for this project. And that is what we did with 7th Street Bridge. We were able to flex the Measure L that was on it and local funds and the Highway Bridge Program funds to go after local partnership program funds. If you recall, there's only a couple projects in our region that could claim to be shovel ready, have the leverage dollars in order to go after these local partnership program funds. It was this and the station for the Rail Commission in Modesto and Sirius. Being fully funded, being shovel ready, and being an excellent project helped this project compete successfully for 15 million, which is it's a pretty decent amount. In years past, we were lucky to get 2 million here and 2 million there. This is like 3 times more than any of the funding we've ever received. And it's because this project has been fully funded. I'll be talking about that later, but being fully funded does not mean you should stop pursuing competitive funding sources.
Does that mean we get to back out local money?
It does. Thank you. I should have, I missed the punchline. So having received 15 million, that means the city and the county, 7.5 million each, get to back out their local measure for the county. And I think it was just local general fund for the city. And they get to use that on other bridges, other road rehabilitation projects. This is a valid way for stretching your Measure L dollars to put it on a project to go after funds, pull it back, then go put it on your next project to go after funds. The analogy I've used with the TAC and with the Management Finance Committee is it reminds me of my aunt who will go and put jackets over picnic tables when we're going to a park. That way, when the family finally shows up after church, there's all these spots already saved, and then she picks up the jackets, and she might do that at the next event. Measure L funds get to be a placeholder to save your spot for future funds.
Any other questions?
Just want to remind everyone who voted for Measure L, it was sold on the leveraging component. That was why San Joaquin was so successful for so many years, because they always had match money. And until SB1 came around, there wasn't a local partnership program. That was a part of the Self-Help Coalition. The self-help counties had asked for a program that was specifically for them to advantage them, since they were already investing in their roadways, some of it state roadways, some of it federal roadways, and local. And so this is another example of, what we've always hoped to do, bring in money that someone else has put in the pot. Some of that money's Stanislaus County, but some of it's from Orange County and San Diego and Mariposa. So this is a really good thing.
Any other questions? No? Any questions from the public on 5A? Nothing online. Okay. I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Okay, moving on to 5B, motion to recommend the policy board adopt by resolution the Measure L Regional Control Project Cooperative Agreement for plans, specifications, estimates for the Faith Home Road Expressway project. Jose Luis, you're back up.
Thank you. Next slide. This also should be brief. Faith Home Road is one of the Measure L regional projects that was identified in the Measure L expenditure plan and approved by the voters. After that, it was also included in the StanCog strategic plan, which identifies cash flow for how we're going to pay for these Measure L regional projects. They have come in and said, we are ready to start plans, specifications, and estimates, the county. This is the item to enter in a cooperative agreement between StanCog and the county for the work on Faith Home Road. Next slide. So Faith Home Road, this is a snapshot from the Measure L strategic plan. There's 10 million identified in strategic plan for, that's plan specifications and estimates, and also right-of-way. The county is only coming in just for plan specifications and estimates, so they're only asking for 8 million of the 10 million available. They didn't even need to ask for 8, they could have asked for 1.5 or 3, but they believe they're going to need the 8 million to pay for this out of their local funds. I would add, similar to before, if the county were to choose and go pursue competitive funds, they could, and then they wouldn't have to spend all the 8 million of local measure for this. But that is their plan, and it's consistent with our Measure L strategic plan. I would add the Management and Finance Committee was particularly concerned about cash flow. So this identifies 1.5 million and then 1.5 and then 3 million as how much the county expected to need to draw from Measure L to deliver Faith Home through right-of-way. And the question was, well, what if they were to spend all of that up front? We got an answer from Dave Lehman saying that they can't spend that much funding that fast. But the Management Finance Committee said that they would actually approve this item for recommendation to the board with the caveat that StanCog in the cooperative agreement stipulate that the county would not be able to expend more funds than we have the cash flow to cover. There's a concern about that. And I'll add, in the strategic plan, it actually says in it that we expect by sometime around 2029 or 2030 for us to encounter cash flow problems, and which time we would need to consider bonding or other sources of funding to keep Measure L cash flowing. Next slide. I think I might have another slide. Oh, on to questions.
Can I ask what was actually in our strategic plan? When were they supposed to take draws on the money?
Back to slide.
That is
Is
what
that-
is in the plan?
That precise table, yes. I figured this would look better than copying and pasting from the plan.
I do have a question, and this is something that has sat with me for, ever since this project was presented way back when, not through Stancog, but just overall. When the expressway is completed to Hatch Road, on Faith Home, from that point, continuing towards Keys, is that going to be an additional project, or is that going to be up to the city of Ceres to initiate and pay for? Because my concern is all the extra traffic that is going to be put onto Hatch Road at Faith Home, either turning left and right on Hatch Road, or all the heavy trucks that are going to be added to Faith Home trying to get to the freeway. I see a tremendous bottleneck. I see excessive road wear. And I'm just trying to think ahead how we're going to alleviate that problem once the bridge is complete.
I do not have the answer to that question.
Okay.
The county, as part of their plan specifications and estimates, they're supposed to be answering questions like that. Not just what's happening in the limits of the project, but what happens at the end limits. How would you like your question answered? Would you like me to have someone from the county contact you directly, or would you like a follow-up item brought before this committee?
I think I can answer that for you.
Thank you.
I think I can answer that question. So the traffic right now currently is coming out right by the airport and taking Mitchell Road on southbound 99.
Right.
They want to take that because that's going through the city. And they want to move it so that traffic can move faster. That's why they're moving the truck traffic. It's going to be more truck traffic. It won't be an increase in traffic because anyone that's trying to get to Ceres is now taking Mitchell Road. So, and it's a hard left, and do you want someone driving down Main Street in Houston, a semi-truck? So it's about moving truck traffic off of the city streets over to Faith Home Road, southbound. If they're going northbound, they're supposed to take Yosemite Boulevard and access Central Modesto. That's the way it's currently, that's the way the current truck route is. And as far as truck or car traffic that will utilize it, it's getting there somehow. So and until we build more houses and increase the amount of traffic, it should lessen the impact on Mitchell Road, which would be good for Ceres. At least I think so. I think Ceres would see it that way.
More specifically, to take the truck traffic off of Mitchell and onto Faith Home.
And you want to signalize the whole thing down. So again, utilizing CMAQ monies, air quality component, so that trucks will keep moving to get on Keys Road, which is currently an underutilized overpass.
Well, going along with that, and I understand all that, but having the increased traffic coming across the bridge to Hatch Road and going on to Faith Home is a narrow road, and it's an old road. And I mean, I can see shortly after the bridge is done, that road being torn up. I mean, just from the increased traffic. I understand about getting it off Mitchell. I mean, and I'm totally agree with that. But I think we also have to look at, or at least forward Ceres the opportunity to say, hey, we're going to need some help widening Faith Home, at least 2 lanes in each direction to make this work. I mean,
Most of it's in the unincorporated area, so we'll have the same concern
okay.
between Service and Keys, all country.
Okay. But you understand my point.
I absolutely do.
Okay.
And I already hear from the people who own property along Faith Home, so you know.
Well, I'm looking at the map as we have this discussion, so that will be bringing to Yosemite. Well, Garner goes, yeah, so I mean, that's
Garner
gonna
to
impact
Claus.
Modesto hugely. If they go straight on Claus or left on Yosemite, which, see, it'll be taking longer than to get to 99. So that'll be interesting to see how the trucks actually choose to go if they're trying to get to 99.
It'll,
Yeah.
it'll eventually tie into NCC with the realignment of Claus Road. So
I hear Riverbank. There we go. Interesting. Good to see it on the map.
I do know that this is Dave Lehman's, I think he said his favoritist project. It would, I'm sure he would love to come and do some special presentations if that would interest this committee or the board.
all right, any other questions? Questions from the public? We
Is that-
do.
There's a comment online
Okay.
from a member of the public, Carolyn Newman. She says, the more lanes you add, the more traffic you draw. It is the opposite of what you expect.
Thank you for that comment. Any other comments from the public? Nothing more online? All right, I'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, moving on to 5C. Motion to recommend the policy board adopt a resolution of support for the application to the StanCog fiscal year 2027, 2030 funding round by StanCog for State Route 132 West projects. Jose Luis.
So this is the item that will probably take more time. And I want to just come out and clarify something right now. You're going to hear me talk about StanCog two ways. StanCog as the funding agency, which that is what StanCog is. StanCog as also a lead agency and applicant for funding for State Route 132 West, which StanCog is. Next slide. So StanCog, the funding agency, is currently in the middle of a call for projects for transportation funding for two funding sources. They're both acronyms: the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, or CMAQ, and the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, STBG. There's 90 million available. It's actually a total funding round of 96, but only 90 available for competitive applications. This is the largest funding round our agency has ever presided over. In part because instead of programming just 2 years, our agency is programming 4 years to build up a pipeline of projects that know that they have funding and will be coming in. On top of that, our agency has uncovered carryover funds going back perhaps 2 decades that are folded into this funding round, making this basically a triple-sized funding round. Instead of 30 million, 90 million. With this large amount of money, we have the opportunity to program larger awards. In the past, our agency might give out $1 or $2 million per project, and that's not really enough to do much except some sidewalks and signals. This round, we have split it in about half, where half of the CMAQ and half of the STBG can pay for large applications. We're defining large as a $5 million maximum ask with 3 large applications max per agency. Now, StanCog, the applicant, needs to fund State Route 132 West. And State Route 132 West is not just one project, it's an interchange, and I'll go into it. It's a few projects. It's the #1 project in the strategic plan. StanCog is an eligible applicant for this funding. And State Route 132 happens to be shovel-ready and high-performing. Next slide. So I talk about State Route 132 West. So we're going to do something, see if we can, we've had some technical problems showing this video. Bear with me. Let's see if we can make it happen. What I really love about this video is the audio. When you're standing there on the sidewalk and the trucks come barreling by, you can feel it in your bones. And it's my hope that we will feel that audio today. I'm not feeling it today, but that is a really loud truck. And that is someone just standing on the sidewalk or in the gutter. So this is the current State Route 132. It's Mays Boulevard. And we are trying to get these trucks off of this road. That it's a state highway is an accident of history. California, in order to build the state highway system, identified county roads and made those county roads the state highway. And if you ever drive down stretches of 99, you can see where the old 99 used to be. It's usually some very small road with old power lines. This should not exist. We should not have trucks barreling down this road. It's only because the state ran out of money in the 70s that the state had to abandon this project. But we've taken it back up. Stancog, the funding agency or the lead agency, we are diverting trucks off of this facility onto a new controlled access facility. Next slide. Oh, you know what? Actually, before I go, I'm going to talk about what we're applying for. So this slide has changed prior to coming to this committee. We're proposing to apply for 5 million of STBG. That's a large app for Dakota to Gates or Gates to Dakota. And we're going to apply for 5 million in STBG for the State Route 99 132 interchange. That's a large app. And then for Kansas Avenue, it's an overcrossing. We had been looking at 5 million. We have downgraded it to a $2 million application. That's a small application. Next slide. I talk about Dakota to Gates and State Route 132. I should be bringing you these visuals. So State Route 132, we talk about it as one project, but we've had to do it in pieces. The blue over there, that's phase 1. That goes from 99 to Dakota, and that was built by the city of Modesto some time ago. I think that's 5 years now. We still need to build the rest of the project. So Dakota to Gates is the dotted red line on the left or western side of the map. Next slide. And the interchange is the other chunk of this project. It is quite expensive. Without that interchange, we cannot get trucks and traffic seamlessly from 99 onto this new alignment. And without that seamless travel, trucks may still want to continue using Mays Boulevard. So will motorists. You don't want to have to take a detour to hop on the new alignment of State Route 132. Next slide. Now, as part of this funding round, we also identified a bike ped component. The next slide, please. We identified I think we went 2 slides too fast. 1 slide back. Oh, I guess we were here. I'm sorry. Thank you. We also identified this other component, the Kansas Avenue overcrossing. It is a little stretch of Kansas that goes right over Highway 99. And I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about it. Next slide. So on the visual is what I like best, the street view. It's a narrow 3-foot sidewalk next to pretty fast moving traffic, no bike lanes, no sidewalk on the other side. The city of Modesto has labeled this as an intersection barrier and a level 3 traffic stress corridor, meaning only your most comfortable cyclist or aggressive cyclist would dare to cross this. Most other people would find some other way to get over 99 or, you know what, just drive it and forget about walking. If we can widen this, we believe we can make it much easier to connect the east to the west of Modesto. Next slide. So we're going to transition into funding. This is what I do, is I fund transportation projects. That's the programming part of my job description. Dakota to Gates is a $77 million project, but just 2 years ago, we thought it was a $130 million project. Design advanced, we're able to sharpen our pencils. 77 million is how much we believe it'll cost to build. We applied for 67 million for a trade corridor enhancement program application. That's through the CTC. When you apply to the CTC, you must show a fully funded project. In other words, your match must be fully committed. If you have iffy funds like an earmark that you've applied for or hopes for a future STBG grant, that does not get you the points that does not give you the points of saying that you have Measure L funds. So when we applied for these funds, we told the CTC we have 10 million of Measure L funds, and we do. We just don't want to spend it on this particular phase. We want to save that Measure L for the interchange. So when we came, what we're proposing is to apply for 5 million of STBG for Dakota to Gates, and we already have a congressional earmark with Schiff for 5 million that it's working its way through Congress. Fingers crossed. Hopefully we can get that. With those 2 sources of funding, we believe that'll free up, not we believe, that would free up our Measure L of 10 million funds. Next slide. So then let's talk about the interchange. The interchange has a funding strategy so big and complicated, I would not torture you with it with a slide. It would probably deserve its own presentation. But it has Trade Corridor Enhancement Program funds, Solutions for Congestion Corridor funds, State Highway Operations Protection funds. It has SCBG that we're applying for in this program, has Measure L, Local Partnership Competitive, Local Partnership Formula. Like I could go on and on. We will need all those sources of funds, and perhaps even more I haven't identified yet, to build a $256 million interchange, especially considering that we only have 5 million left of Measure L to construct this project. Next slide. So our strategy, and this is why I was hired here at StanCog, is to fund projects and develop funding strategies. Our strategy is to free up 10 million of Measure L funds from Dakota to Gates and move that to the interchange project and the Kansas Overcrossing project, so that there will be 15 million of Measure L for that large project. Next slide. So this is what it looks like. For the interchange, when you have 5 million of the Measure L that we've already set aside for the construction interchange, when you have the 10 million that we would transfer from Dakota to Gates, hopefully successful 5 million SCBG grant, and a hopefully successful 2 million CMAQ grant, that would come up with about $22 million. $22 million, which we can use to go leverage Local Partnership Competitive Program. To go get Local Partnership Competitive Program, you need dollar for dollar match. These 22 million can leverage us 22 million of local partnership match. If we're not successful in this funding program, and we do not get the 12 million that we're applying for, it results in us also not being able to go after 12 million for Local Partnership Competitive Program. Next slide. So I wanted to tell you about the discussion we've had at the TAC and the Management Finance Committee. Also, I've talked with staff individually. The Management Finance Committee took an action in support of these projects. Not unanimous. There was one vote from the City of Newman against. But took a vote of support of the projects, but they were not supportive of the process. They did not like being surprised to find out that StanCog would be applying for its own funding program. There was a preference that regional projects be funded outside of this competitive process. The StanCog should not compete against member agencies for funding. There's also concern about phasing not being allowed. And I was a little caught off guard by this myself. So I went and pulled up the requirements, and it's in a little bit smaller print. But that is word for word what is in the funding guidelines, and I'm going to read word for word. Thank you for making it a little bigger. Projects may be broken into phases, and each phase must have a separate application up to the application limit. Applicants must discuss phase projects with StanCog staff prior to applying. Failure to discuss with StanCog staff prior to the application deadline may result in disqualification. There was this impression from the City of Ceres, and I talked to the staff, and what it was is the staff at the city did not read the guidelines, but instead came away with a feeling. And the feeling from the last funding round was that one of the agencies applied for a road that needed rehabilitation, and it needed 3 million of rehabilitation. And so what they did is they cut it into 3 equal pieces to get $1 million, $1 million, and $1 million. And it was just such a transparent splitting of the project into phases just for the funding round. And many of the other agencies took umbrage with that. I'm all about funding projects that need funding. I actually saw it as a clever strategy that stayed within the rules. But for this next funding round, we added this language because you can't make phasing like against the rules. That's how you build projects. No city or county or transit operator can build it all at once. Like the Rail Commission isn't going to build ACE all in one fell swoop, and we're not going to build our interchanges all in one fell swoop either. To go after the various competitive sources of funding, we are going to need to break our large projects into pieces. We broke our large project into pieces before this funding round. We didn't break it for this, but still the members of the MFC felt like, well, that's still StanCog weighing in on a StanCog project, providing its own oversight. And I could see that concern. If I knew that that was such a concern, I might have proposed that Stancog sponsor agency would need to bring the project to the committee process for confirming a project broken into phases. But that's actually what we're doing. We're bringing these projects for recommendation through the whole committee process in transparency. Now, I want to just say a word about trust. I am big on trust. I spent 20 years in the Sacramento Area Council of Governments where I built trusting relationships with local cities, counties, the state. If you ask my name up and down the state, I'm a trustworthy individual and I only bring transparent items. And so I want to just be clear. I'm open and available to any and all suggestions for changing our process. It's just, I want to add, it is my job to pursue funding for State Route 132. And it is also my job to supervise this funding program. Next slide. Always got to plug our website, stateroute132west.com. We have a workshop coming up in October. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. Next slide. And I think we're on to questions. And there's that truck going right past someone's front yard.
Vito?
So management and finance, I caught some of the meeting and there were concerns about competing against each other. But the numbers you showed today are different than the numbers you showed, what you were asking. Can you go through each one of what your requests were at management and finance and what you changed?
Yes, can we go back to the slide where it lists each of the three projects with the dollar amount being requested? It goes 5 million large, 5 million large, and 2 million small. I think we might have just skipped it. Ah, so the version that we presented to the TAC and the Management Finance Committee looked just like this, except that I've added parentheticals of whether a project is a large app or small app. And then for bullet 3, we downgraded the request from a 5 million request to a 2 million request, which changes where Kansas Avenue would compete in. Instead of competing with large applications, it'd be competing with small applications. So maybe sidewalks and roundabouts or very small projects. Now, the reason for that change is actually not so much from dealing with feedback. We are working on these applications now, and Kansas Avenue overcrossing has some emission benefits, but they're not magnificent. They're not enough to justify a $5 million request. So we're going to need to find other funding to pay for the rest of that project. And the most we can really justify going after is 2 million to have a cost effectiveness score that's worth considering by Stancog, the scoring committee. So that's the change we did, and that's why we did it.
Did we say we were going to do half of the $90 million is for large and half is for smaller?
Half is not precise. It's a certain dollar amounts for large and a certain dollar amounts for small. And it's not exactly half. It's not exactly half of either fund. It was, we brought a series of like 6 alternatives for the technical advisory committee. We had them vote in person and online, and we ended up settling with a certain dollar amount for large and a certain dollar amount for small. And I'm looking at it's almost half. But the thing to keep in mind is it's not that we have $90 million to do $5 million applications. We have $90 million, and only some of that is for 5 million, and the rest of it is for small projects.
And can you explain the process of scoring? Who's scoring?
Thank you. Absolutely. So this funding round, every member agency will be invited to provide a scorer. That's usually someone from Public Works or Planning. And included in that is Stancog staff. So that would be me. We would score the projects, the applications, but no scorer would score their own agency's application. That would include if they partnered together and did an application together, they wouldn't score their partner agency's application. So for this project, we're going to meet remotely, but I would pull myself out of the room and I'd have my cell phone They would call me back in after they finished discussing the project. My scores would not be entered into the average score for the projects.
So the agencies are the 9 cities and the
Yes.
county plus Stancog.
Yes.
Stancog has 1 vote.
Stancog has 1 vote, as do all of the 10-member jurisdictions.
Any other questions from the board?
I have a question. So the 5 million to the 2 million, does that make it more likely to,
So these are good strategy questions. I think so. I think it's hard to it's hard to come up with $2 million CMAQ projects. $2 million, like for instance, the Church Street project where we're building sidewalks in Empire. It's a $8 million project. So you'd have to think even smaller than that when you're trying to figure out what to do with a $2 million CMAQ application. And it's just me now. I think that there may be money left over at the end of this funding round for small application CMAQ projects. So this, yes, I guess you would say it's easier in that there's probably less competition for the small CMAQ projects. While for the large CMAQ projects, I do not know who will be applying, but our transit operators will have a chance to go after the CMAQ, and transit generally scores really well.
okay, my other question is regarding the slide where you quoted the partial application.
Yes, could we, it's the
What
phased.
Was that put into place?
This was adopted by the policy board April 2025. And it went out for comment for a month before that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Any questions from the public on this agenda item? Nothing online. Okay, I'll bring it back towards the board for a motion or further questions or comments.
I do have a quick comment. I'm thinking about this in both the process and then the project itself. I think it'd be important for us to consider with the policy board as a whole, because how did the language, how was that incorporated or was that internally?
That language about phasing projects.
And then
So-
also talking to StanCog staff.
Yes, so I'm going to answer the longer version of that. For years, our agency has been giving out CMAQ and SVG funds using a formula. Different formulas for each program. For SVG, it was based on lane miles and population, and every jurisdiction could count on getting kind of a small amount doled out to them on an annual basis. For CMAQ, it was based on performance, but large agencies could ask for more and smaller agencies would be capped at smaller amounts, regardless of how well their projects performed. We were told by the Federal Highway Administration, and not just us, most regions of California got written up by the Federal Highway Administration saying, no, that's not why StanCog exists. If that's all StanCog did, we could just take care of that with cities and counties on their own. StanCog exists because as a region, we need to come up with regional strategies to address regional problems. That means you should be looking at performance measures for how to decide which projects get funded, not simply handing it out on a formula basis. So last funding round was our attempt to make good on that write-up. And it was our first time, it was an experiment. One agency famously cut a project into 3 pieces and got funded. And so we took feedback from that through, I think, at least 3 workshops, technical advisory committee meetings, one-on-one conversations for the Shire folks. And then we incorporated that into changes with strikeout and underline and PowerPoints and whatnot. And we came up with this. And we had to make a decision about what to do about phase projects. So it was me and then a former staff, Blake Dunford. We met and took into account the various feedback. Not phasing a project is not really an option. Everyone has to do phasing at some level for large projects. But we did want to be able to have a conversation with a local agency and just figure out if they're just transparently trying to get around the max application requirements, or if they actually have like a real phased project. And that's why we added that language. So if you go back to it, it says phasing is allowed. We want to have a conversation. Failure to have that conversation could, but not definitely, could result in disqualification. We're going to see probably some levels of phasing. I can tell you right now, our transit operator needs to buy buses. They could buy 3 buses in one application, or they could buy 1 bus and 1 bus and 1 bus. I'm not sure how much our agency cares. It's really it's a gray area, whether you break your project into pieces or come in all at once. So we wanted to be able to have that conversation, and that's how that language ended up getting through all of the committees and then passed by the policy board in April 2025.
Thank you. So it's fairly new, the language.
Yes, we've actually never had to take a stance on phases before, especially when we're handing things out on a formula basis.
And I guess the only thing is like with the theme of everything this year is the trust that you mentioned. And I don't think it's reflective of any individual, rather maybe learning to trust this process. Because I want, yeah, to your point, I want to be able to encourage phased approaches. And maybe there's some form of incorporating more transparency around the latter part of it, where is this, they have to have discussions, failure to have discussions will result in disqualifications. So, I think what I'm asking is if we could add some more transparency to that latter portion.
So perhaps bringing it through technical advisory committee for an open discussion among the agencies, as opposed to just focus with Stancock staff, especially now that Stancock staff is an applicant.
Zach, what are your thoughts?
I mean, when I read it, I read it just as Jose Luis said, that you could do it in phases, but let's have a conversation about your plan. That's it. I mean, that's what I. All right. Any other discussion? All right, bring back for a motion.
So move.
I have a first. I have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. All right. Moving on to 5D, motion to recommend the policy board adopt by resolution an amendment to the employee policies and procedure handbook. Monica and Cindy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be addressing this item. I'm just passing out hard copies of the proposed revision to the employee handbook. We encountered some technical difficulties and we weren't able to get this online, but it will be online this afternoon. It will also be online as part of your policy board packet. So if I can just pass these around. I believe this one is for Mrs. Wallen, so she has the staff report, and then these are for the other members. Thank you. So the employee handbook is provided to all Stancock employees when they're hired as part of their onboarding process. And it's really just kind of a working guide to the employees and the supervisors. And it contains and describes the personnel policies, the practices, and employment guidelines of Stancock. The employee handbook is updated annually to reflect changes in employment laws and revisions to policies and procedures. Next slide, please. The amendment before you focuses on 3 particular things. One, it confirms the rate of vacation accrual that was implemented but not approved by the policy board, and I'll explain each of these in a moment. 2, it clarifies compensation for out-of-class assignments. And 3rd, it adds a new Article 14, which sets forth the procedure to amend the handbook in the future. Next slide, please. So regarding the vacation accrual, the employee handbook was last presented to the policy board for adoption in November of 2021. After that adoption, a new rate of vacation accrual was implemented, but it was not adopted by the policy board. So the amendment before you confirms the rate of vacation accrual that was adopted in 2021. In other words, those 2021 rates are now would be the adopted rates set forth in the text of the employee handbook. And if adopted, the vacation accrual rates wouldn't go into effect until October 4th of 2025. We're suggesting that date because it coincides with employee pay periods, and it also gives us at least a week's time to notify the employees of the prospective change. Next slide, please. regarding the out-of-class assignments, it's just providing some clarification as what happens if an employee is asked to do some work out of class. And clarifies, and I say clarify because the way the handbook read before, it gave the impression that even if a small percentage of duties in the higher paid position were assigned to a particular employee, that that employee was automatically entitled to the full salary of the higher paid employee rather than a portion. And so we clarified that by adding some language that identifies that for working out of class, the employee will receive the corresponding increase in pay that's determined either by the executive director for employees or for the policy board for assignments that are hired by and report directly to the policy board. So that would be the executive director and the general counsel position. When an employee is assigned those limited duties of the higher paid position, the increase in pay is proportionate to the newly assigned duties. So there's some discretion there, not an automatic jump to the full salary associated with the higher paid position. And then also to clarify that out-of-class assignments are temporary so that we can recruit qualified candidates to fill positions when they are vacant. Next slide, please. And then the amendment process, we've added a new Article 14, which is at the end of the handbook, and it just very clearly states that any proposed amendments to the handbook have to be prepared in writing by either the executive director or designee, and then all proposed amendments will be presented to the Sandcog Policy Board for approval. Next slide. So with that, we're asking that there be a motion to recommend the policy board adopt the proposed amendments to the employee handbook, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Monica?
First time seeing this. The accrual rates all look the same, whether you're management, regular full-time or supervisors. It's just the maximum accrual that
That is correct. And we took that directly from what was referred to as Appendix A from the 2021 handbook
Okay.
that was presented to the policy board, copied that information and placed it into the text of the employee handbook. And that's contained in section 3.2.2 on page 9.
the floats and okay. And then on cash out is the same.
So the cash out provision has not been changed. There are different cash out provisions for regular employees versus management employees. But again, it's subject to executive director approval and budget consideration.
Okay, but that's leaving it up to the executive director, right?
Limits.
There are limits. There are also caps on how much you can accrue. And then there are also limits as to how much you can cash out.
But when you say budget considerations, it's left up to the executive director to determine the budget considerations, correct? I'll have to think that one through.
Did you mention that this wasn't in as an attachment to the agenda?
That is correct. We had a technical issue, but it is going to be posted online this afternoon, and it will be part of the packet for the policy board.
So I mean, I guess before I continue conversations about this, is in this committee, I'm not comfortable making a decision around it, and because we haven't been able to review it deeply and in detail.
I would agree. The good news is that we have now until next Wednesday to read it, and the board will have the same opportunity, but I'm just asking questions for
Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah, that's the problem that I have, is the way the agenda item is set up is that we're recommending that the policy board adopt this resolution, and we haven't had time to even look at it.
Yeah.
So,
Send it forward without any record, explain that to them.
yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it going to the policy board, but to imply that we just haven't had a chance to look at it.
The recommendation could be to move it on to the policy board,
Yeah,
not so
that,
much,
I'm
not
comfortable
so
with
much
that.
endorse it.
Yeah.
So this also brings up another point of discussion because we're having discussions on pay rates, right? That we did when we were going out for recruitment. for the executive director, which I would say is downsized a little bit from where we were. And the last time we did a classification study for all of our employees was 2017, which is grossly out of date. And I know that's not in this motion, but I think that needs to go to the board also to initiate classification study like we did. And I hate to throw anything more on the table, but there are some open positions and better to get them right sized. But, remember when I say something like that, the chances of it going down are slim, and probably the top end might even go higher. That's the chance you take. But again, we're competing against counties and cities and other cogs, and so we have to make sure we're paying competitively.
So staff does recognize that that is a priority and something that does need to be updated because that study, as you mentioned, was last done in 2017. We will need to look at some budget considerations. There are a lot of unanticipated expenses this year associated with some of the things that the board is authorizing and undertaking. So we'll have to do some looking there and come back with a recommendation and how we can fund that item.
Buckle on you the money.
Go ahead.
Okay. So how did this item get initiated? And then who did the work with the suggestions?
For the employee handbook.
Uh.
So the employee handbook was one of the items that was discussed in the grand jury report that was released in June. And one of the items in there was some discussion regarding the vacation accrual rates
Mhm.
and this quote unquote Appendix A, which is a summary of benefits. So in looking at that and working forward on all of the items that are addressed in the grand jury report, working with the ad hoc committee, we asked outside legal counsel as an independent party to take a look at that and make those revisions.
Mhm.
And so this amendment is limited to those particular things. There are other items at some point that will need to still come back for clarification, compliance with laws that are going to go into effect in 2026, for example. But this is limited to those items that were identified.
Okay, so the ad hoc committee from the grand jury report is the group that suggested that this particular item be worked on first, because we haven't even done the forensic audit or the investigation yet. So how did this get chosen?
So this is one of the items that is a little bit more accessible to move forward and to check off the list and be responsive to the timeline identified in the grand jury report. The investigations require more time. We're relying again on outside consultants and things, but the ad hoc committee is meeting and working on those items.
If I can explain the vacation accrual, we didn't okay this.
Pardon me?
We did not okay the vacation accruals that are currently in place. They were just.
No, I understand that,
So this
but
is-
I'm just trying to, this whole situation and this coming forward, aside from the full investigation not being done, which I think at that point would prioritize like when things should happen. So I was just curious how this
Well, this-
particular,
If we didn't okay this and it's currently accruing right now on
Mhm.
people's paychecks. And so we have to write that. This is the one issue that has
Mhm.
to be righted as soon as possible, or we're fraudulently, I don't know what the right word is. They're accruing, or we could okay it as a board. We could just say it was okay, the current accrual rates, but I don't think that was the intent of the board back in 2021.
Any other questions? All right, any questions from the public? Nothing online? All right, I'll bring it back to the board either for more comments or motion. And I guess we need to discuss what the motion is going to be. It's not so much a recommendation from the executive board for approval. It's just to move the project along to the policy board.
So the action coming out of this committee this afternoon could be just a motion to move the item forward with no action by the, no recommendation by the executive committee.
So I'll need a motion on that.
I'll second it.
I'll first it.
Okay, I got a first and a.
I thought it did too.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that the motion was clear and what it was moving forward.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right. Moving on to E, motion to recommend the policy board approve by resolution fiscal year 2025-26 cost of living adjustments effective July 1st, 2025 as budgeted for in the approved fiscal year 2025-26 overall work program, the OWP, and budget for StanCog staff employed as of the date the policy board takes action. Jean Flett.
Thank you. Yes, so this item is again just to talk about the cost of living adjustments for FY 2025 and 2026. As part of the budgeting process and the OWP overall work program, we include staffing needs to produce the work required. We also look at market conditions and assess to ensure staff compensation maintains alignments with the economy and accommodate the recruitment and retention of staff. Salaries are then discussed as part of the budget process and factored into the annual budget should funds be available. For FY 25-26, the OWP did include a COLA estimate of 4%. StanCog uses a consumer price index for the Stanislaus region issued by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics as its final method of determining what a COLA should be. Once we looked at this for FY 25-26, the recommendation was 3%. So that's why we're making forwarding this along as a 3% versus a 4%. We're also recommending only staff employed as of the date the policy board takes action will be eligible for the COLA, and the total fiscal impact to the budget would be $44,021.33. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Jean?
I'm not sure I heard you say it, but this is, you have to be employed. Currently, if the board takes action, it will be retro back to July
Yes, yes.
1st.
I did not say that. It's retro.
So this was, again, we always left this up to the executive director on the COLA and merit pay. We have no one in charge, no one to do of all the employees below to do evaluations to see if merit pay is, but it was built into the OWP also.
The merit pay was built into the OWP, and the merit performance merits, we did go over the performance reviews with staff.
And how much money was set aside for merit pay? Do you remember?
That was a total of 5% overall. So that would be 3%. So
Not for all employees. It was 5%.
it was, no, we took 5% across the top, knowing that some employees would get 4, 3, 2, 1. We didn't know how many would get 5, how many would get 4, how many would get 3, and so on and so on. So it's easy just to calculate the 5% because we have to do this ahead of the actual performance reviews.
But that means that all employees are eligible for merit pay?
No.
Yeah.
Only those that are past their probationary period.
Depending on employee evaluations.
Depending on their evaluation. So some could be eligible for 5%, some could be eligible for 4, and some 3.
Yeah, according to the evaluation.
And any action that we considered would have to come after this. This is strictly about a COLA.
This is strictly about the COLA, has nothing to do with the merit.
Any other question? All right, any comments from public? No comments from the public. Bring it back to the board for motion.
To approve.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, moving on to F, draft September policy board agenda. Jean Paletta.
Okay, great. So you have that in front of you. It's a pretty hearty agenda. There will be a couple of items that you've heard tonight, as well as the Measure L website update from Convey Inc., the motion regarding the MOVE budget, and then a couple of closed sessions. So this is before you, and I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions for Jean?
So the only thing that's new is 6C and 7A from the exec, correct? The move, the HR consulting for executive director recruitment and the move budget.
The MOVE budget and the Measure L website presentation at the very beginning.
Okay, and also, well, I got 6C and 7A, and then
there's-
also 5A.
And there's also an item after the closed session, item
Oh,
14.
yeah. That's on the last page.
Oh, correct.
14.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? All right, any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back, and there is no motion. Yes. No, no action. All right. Good. All right. Is our interim director online? Is that? No report. Member report.
Just want to thank all the Stancock employees who are sticking with us. Thank you again. I know tough times, but appreciate you guys.
I'll second that. Thank you guys for working so hard. Yeah. All good? All right. We are adjourned.